What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Hard Rock Garage. On today's episode, it's time to do another leveling kit. So we of course went to our friends at Torch Off-Road here, and we're gonna do one a little different than I normally do. We're actually bringing a Ford in the shop, if you can believe it or not. But today we're gonna do a front leveling kit on our 2022 F-150. So grab you a cold one and let's get it started. Hey guys, so here's the first Ford I've ever had in my shop, and it's a nice one too. This is a 2022 F-150, four-wheel drive, all that good stuff. Really cool truck. It's one of our work trucks, kind of like that Chevrolet I did in my previous video. So this one has only got 17,000 miles on it so far. It runs down the same roads that I run down in my Chevy. So we're gonna go ahead and raise the front up a little bit so maybe it doesn't tear that air dam off like most of the other trucks do. So we're gonna get that kit put on this one and see how she looks. So, this is just gonna be the front kit only. So we've got the strut spacers here. Got your pre-machined holes, pre-threaded. Hardware, the new studs and nuts. They give you these good sticker packs. They always give you the courtesy letter like I've shown you in previous videos. And a good detailed instruction deal, and you can follow this steps 1 through 11 here and just check it off as you go. It's really good to have. It's really nice they send all that, and then they also send you this little diagram that kind of shows you how the strut spacer works, stating that, you know, it may not look like 3-inch or 2-inch or whichever one you may have, but it actually is because of the way this works, and that kind of simplifies it for us. So that helped me a lot too. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get prepared. I'm going to go ahead and just put the truck on jack stands, because I mean, you guys know how to do that already, and it states to do so in the instructions anyway. But I'm going to go ahead and get it on jack stands, get the wheels off, and get it ready to go. Alright, y'all. Got everything set. We're on jack stands. Make sure you get that on and secure, and do your shake test, whatever you need to do. If you're not sure what to do, just stop and don't go any further. Get someone to help you and do it right. That's dangerous. On to where we're going to get the lift. Directions here. Like I said, 1 through 11. I go through and I check mark things, and then I've put the size of the wrenches for each line for what you're dealing with here, and I will put that into editing so it's easier to see. But first thing we're going to do is, since it's up here, I put some WD-40 on everything, and we are going to remove the sway bar end link, which is this right here. That's a 21mm wrench. We're going to go ahead and take that off. The lower strut mount bolts off, which are these right down here, 18mm, and then we will loosen off those top ones up here. There's 3 up here, of course, like every other vehicle. Sorry, that's hard to see. Let's get back here to get some light. You can see them up here. There's 3 of them on top, 18mm also. And we're going to remove the brake caliper, which is this here. And this nut here is going to be a 13mm. And we'll be able to pull that caliper out of the way. And you'll want to hang it up here somehow with a rope or a wire or anything like that, where you don't break these brake lines. And what I go ahead and do is I take the extra step and just go ahead and pull this bracket. That way you got some leeway to move some of this stuff around in case you accidentally drop it or you pull a spindle too much. And after that is going to be the dangerous spot, which is the upper ball joint. This is the last thing you remove, and once I get to that point, I will go ahead and explain a little further on safety on that. Even with the wheels off and A-arms hanging all the way down, there's quite a bit of load on this spring right here, so you don't want to get yourself hurt. So we'll go ahead and pull everything off. I'll show you that as we go, and then once we get here, I'll show you a safety precaution to do, and then we'll start putting our new spacer in. This actually has a hex key in the middle to hold it, so the whole thing doesn't spin. So let me grab a hex key real quick. Just hold that here, spin your nut around. That's loose and out of the way. I'm gonna go ahead and just put that nut on there so I don't lose it. Here is your two lower strut mounts. These are 18mm like I showed you. So it's the same thing as that sway bar link I just showed you up there. Just pull these nuts off, these two here, and then we're gonna come up here and do the same thing with these. Here, and you can actually get up underneath the hood here on this Ford. It's got a lot more room than my Chevrolet did. You can get up there and knock them out with a ratchet or a impact if you got it. Alright guys, on the brake caliper, use your 13mm to get these bolts out here. But this little retainer, or whatever you want to call this thing, I've never dealt with before. See how it kind of spins with the nut? It wasn't allowing it to spin out, so what I did was I got a 15/16 wrench just to hold it in place, and then got my 13, broke it free, and then once you break them free from each other, it'll spin right out. Get your two bolts pulled out there. Get you a pry bar, flathead screwdriver, whatever. Go ahead and remove your caliper, and this is where you'll need to hang it with something so you don't stretch your lines. You can pull these pads off if you want. They're in there pretty good now. And then I'll get my 10mm. Go ahead and pull this bracket off. Guys, got the brake caliper off, and I got it hanging with a piece of wire from underneath the hood, so it's good to go. Next, we're going to get our tie rod end off. This is also 21mm. And then we're going to get our upper ball joint. This is 18mm. And I'm going to show you real fast, like I said earlier, even though we don't have this sitting on the ground with the tire on it and everything and weight on it, there's still load on this spring. So what you need to do is get you another jack or something underneath here and just push that tension off of it just a little bit to where you've got some bind or some load on this lower A-arm before you take this off. Because if you don't, you risk that thing shooting down and coming out and smacking you right in the face, which is also why I left these nuts up here. So that way if it tried to go anywhere, at least if something shot this way, that spring would stay in there and hit this mount up here. Tie rod end, just gonna break that off real fast. Nut is off. Now what I do, if you've ever seen any of my other videos, they have tie rod tools, the pitchforks. I don't ever use them on these. One, you tear up the boot. Two, it's just that much more work and it doesn't really work that well to me. I just hit the spindle here. Now, you just need to give it a few love taps, you know, nice and easy. Just don't hit your dust shield. And there it went. She popped up. We're good to go. So right here, that's the last piece we're taking off, and this is the dangerous one. So what I've done is put a jack down here underneath the lower A-arm, put some tension on it, just raise it up a little. Don't raise it up so high you pull it off your dang jack stands, but just get a good load on it, and then we'll bust this free, and then we're gonna do this. Then we'll bust this free right here, and then we're gonna do the same thing we did on the tie rod end. We're just going to hit the spindle here till it pops up. Alright, we're right about the end of the threads. Now you can see we got that space there. Don't stick your finger in there. We got space right here, and this hasn't separated yet. So what I'm going to do is hit this just like we did on the tie rod end here to allow that to separate, but this is going to hold it from shooting off. And we also got the jack down underneath the lower control arm for extra safety. So these are all the precautions I take, and it's helped me a lot over the years without having any major damage or injuries. There it went. See it pop? Still has some good tension on it. We'll get that 18, and it is got some pretty good tension. So what I'll do is go ahead
Put a little more load on the jack there.
Yeah, okay, so I can move that by hand, so it's all right. The load is pretty much off of it, so it's safe to go ahead and separate this thing. For added security sometimes, I'll get a bar or something like that and just push this down, so you know for sure it's not gonna fly off and smack you. Then just let that go. Boom. Now we're ready to go ahead and finish pulling these nuts off the top of your strut. And then we'll lower that control arm down, pull the strut out. That's off the upper strut mounts. We know the nuts are off the lower strut mounts, so what I'm gonna do is go ahead and take the pressure off of that jack, let that thing come down. Be sure just to watch your brake lines and everything, make sure you don't have something pinched or something like that. And lower down and we'll pull that strut out. Hey guys, sorry the camera cut off. All right, so you've got your supplied spacer with the 3 spots for your 3 stud holes from the factory here. You're gonna take these supplied bolts here that are hex socket style. You're gonna run them in the other 3 holes and they're already threaded. So you can see the threads there. So what you're gonna do is the spot that's drilled out, you're gonna screw these all the way in, and then your original stock bolts go right there, and that'll give us your spacer. And these become your new mounting studs. So go ahead and run those in real quick. It's pretty simple. Just run them in like so, all the way till you bottom them out. So there's one. You see it's all the way in there. That'll be your new mounting stud. So I'm gonna go ahead and run the other 2 in there, and then we'll put it up on the strut. All right, we got all 3 secured on there. Now, you're just gonna put your factory bolts right here in the other 3 holes. Boom. Now, in the instructions, it states that on some models, these bolts may stick out of the top of your spacer here. And if that's the case on yours, you're gonna have to trim them off a little bit. And if you wanna know how to do that, go back on my channel, and I've got a couple other kits I did for Torch, and we had to do that on those. So you can see how we trimmed them up. All right, bolted up, ready to go back in the truck. One more thing to add, guys. The stackable lift I did on my 2020 Chevy, I didn't have to do this, but this one, since you put that spacer on, you're actually spinning it. So these studs are not in the same place as they were before. That being said, your whole strut is going to rotate 180 degrees. So what I do is I just put it in a vise here and hook onto those bolts and get that doggone there, and I just twist it back because it's sitting at an angle factory, and then when you spin it around, it's sitting the wrong way. So if you'll just kind of pull that over and turn those down the opposite way to fit your 180, you'll be able to get it in. Guys, I got the driver's side done. I'm going to have to start all over and show you some things. As far as how the spacer goes on the strut, we're good on that, but I had to go a different route, and I'm going to show you why. I got the driver's side done. I'll run you through better details on the passenger side. So let me show you real quick what I ran into. Once we got our spacer in here, could not get these bolts back in, couldn't get the lower A-arm to go down enough to get it in there. So what I ended up having to do was take the lower A-arm off. So since I had to do all that mess, I'm just going to start over showing you how to do it. You've already got the disassembly part. The only thing you need to add to the disassembly is the lower A-arms, and I'll show you that right now. And we'll go ahead and get that other side done, and I'll show you how to go back in with it. Here we are. So everything I showed you on the other side is the same. You're going to do your tie rod in, your brake caliper, your sway bar, upper strut mounts, lower strut mounts, upper ball joint. The difference is now pulling these. So I broke those loose already. So you just need to break this nut off here, put your jack up underneath your A-arm, and pull both of those out and then lower that A-arm down. We'll get this out, put the spacer on it, and come back in with it, and I'll show you how we'll put it back together. Okay, so what we'll do, since we got our jack down there, go ahead and pull these bolts out. All right, front's out, back is out. Okay. Now, there we go. Now she's out. Okay. So the whole issue is these here, getting them back down in this control arm when that spacer's on. So I'm gonna go put the spacer back on. We'll get the spacer put on this one. I'm gonna get these turned that way because it'll do the 180 I was telling you about earlier. And then we'll put it back together. Okay, so like usual, we got a lot of trial and error with some of these newer trucks. So the reason I went ahead and unbolted the bottom control arm, the lower control arm, is because on the other side, I pulled a bunch of the brake components off that I didn't want to have to mess with, and it still wouldn't allow that control arm to go down low enough to make up for the new spacer and these long bolts that go on the bottom. Now normally, you know, like my Chevrolet, these bolts will be completely out. So when you put that spacer in, it'll go right in and then you can just bolt it from underneath. Well, these don't come off. These are like studs on a hub, like this hub right here. So I couldn't get that to move enough, and the only other option was to pull the hub out, which these are not like the old school where you just unbolt, take a few bolts out, pull it off, and then put it back together. It's not that way. There's so much stuff that goes with it. I did not want to do that, so it was easier to go ahead and just pull the bolts on the lower control arm, drop that down, and then it's got marks where it was. It doesn't have alignment bolts on it, but I can put them back where they were, and it's got to have alignment anyway. So that was the best option. So now I'm going to do my best to wedge this one back up in there and button it all back up and let you guys see what it looks like. Okay, I run one of these nuts up here. Hold it in place for me. There we go. There it is. All right. On the top of the strut, we got the two studs going through the lower control arm of the strut. So now we'll go ahead and just raise it up a little bit, do a little persuasion. Yep. Imagine we put our nuts on the bottom. So now, just gonna run this up a little bit with our 18 millimeter. You don't want it tight, you just want it enough to hold it. And the jack is right on the other one, so I'm gonna leave that be and then move the jack. So here we go. Here, this one's already trying to go in. So I'm just gonna move this jack over. And we'll start just raising it up a little bit at a time. Get them worked up in there. Now to get these started, what you can do is whichever side you can get the closest to where it's supposed to bolt up, get you like a screwdriver, or you can even use the regular bolt and just get it worked in there. Okay, so I just got that screwdriver stabbed in there on that lower A-arm. So that way we can come over here and run the bolt in this one. And then we'll come back, pull that screwdriver out, put the bolt in that one, and then we'll line it back up the way it was and tighten the bolts up and start putting the rest of it back together. It's coming around. Got our bolt worked in there. Okay, so we got the front end. We'll go ahead and pull that screwdriver out of the back. Run our bolt and nut through. Bolt goes with the head of the bolt towards the front, and then the opposite on the front one. Go. Now, what we'll go ahead and do is I'll get the jack back underneath here, and we'll start putting all this back together. Then when that's done, we'll come in, readjust these A-arms, put them back where they were, and then button everything up, and we'll be ready to put the wheels back on. All right, so here's your lower control arm. As you can see, I've got to go in with it just a little bit to line it back up on the old mark where it used to be. I'm going to do that and straighten it up and do the same thing on the rear of it, and then tighten up the lower strut mounts. We already got the top, we got the upper control arm done, brakes are on. So I just got to get these tight, get the lower strut mounts tight, and then put the sway bar link back in, tighten it up, and then we'll be ready to put the tires back on it. All right, y'all, so finally got it back together. Everything's tightened up as it should be. So it's time to go ahead and jack it up a little bit and put the tires on it. Ready to see how it looks. Now. Okay, so running into those A-arm issues, I wasn't ready for that. It is 3 o'clock in the morning, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull the truck out, go in and get a few hours sleep, and then I'll come back out tomorrow and get it cleaned up and let you guys see what the finished product is. So we'll see you tomorrow. Well guys, here it is, finished product. Got some good wheel clearance here. So that's really gonna help on these rough roads we go on. Turned out pretty good. This is probably one of the, this one here was a little more, I had to do a little more work on this one just because of having to drop that low control arm, but it still wasn't bad. Trial and error, like I said, it took me longer than planned just because I didn't know. But it's pretty simple. This is just another good affordable kit. Gets you some wheel clearance and ground clearance, and looks really good. These trucks look nice. Even stock rims look good on this little kit here. So it, again, you can see it was just the front. All we did was the front struts, nothing on the rear. So it nothing on the rear. So it just brought it up, made it look like a bigger truck, made it actually look like a 4x4 now. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. I appreciate you tuning in again. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something from it. I sure did. I want to remind you that you can save 10% on this kit, any other kits I did on my other 5 videos, or anything else Torch Off-Road brand. If you go to www.torchoffroad.com and use that promo code ROCK10, that's going to save you 10% on any of their Torch brand products. And now you can also save 10% on any Max Track products that are on the website. Now these are bigger kits than the regular Torch Off-Road leveling kits. So you can get from 3.5 all the way up to 6.5, I believe is the biggest one. I would have to go back and verify that, but go on and check that out. And those kits are a little more expensive because they're the bigger kits. So if you're looking for something that's a little more than that 2 or 3 inch kit that you've seen me do in my other videos, check out the Max Track products. And again, they're gonna let you save 10% with that same promo code, HeartRock10. So check them out. We appreciate you guys watching. Tune in to any of our other videos on the channel if you haven't seen them yet. We've done 5 other videos, so there may be one for your particular vehicle. As always, guys, appreciate you watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and look forward to seeing you guys in the future. See you next time.